All right, welcome back. The Truth in Black and White. Happy to be with you again on this Tuesday, April 11th, 2017. We are from the desk of DallasSportsandMore.com. You can find us on Facebook at Dallas Sports Talk. And we also have a YouTube page, which is Dallas Sports and More.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, today we're going to talk some NBA basketball. We're going to be talking your Dallas Mavericks. We're going to be recapping the NCAA final for the men and the women, actually.
And the women, yeah.
Then we're going to get into some Rangers and maybe touch on Cowboys and NFL. But let's kick things off with our recap of the final, which was a week ago yesterday. And it played out exactly like we said it would. A close game of runs, but where North Carolina held them off and pulled away in the end. One thing I did want to note, don't have a lot of notes about this game, but they did exactly what I thought they should do in terms of North Carolina. They did not, anytime I saw the ball go into the post to Karnowski, they didn't double him.
Right.
And it was and this, you'll see this happen with big men a lot when they're like, suddenly, oh, I'm supposed to score, and it kind of tentative, trying to make a move, and then he'd actually get to the basket and then pass it when he shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
He finished, I think, 0 for 8. It was
Yeah,
either 0 for 8
like
or 1 for 8,
something like that.
with 0 assists.
Yeah.
Didn't get the guys the wide open looks from 3, and you know, North Carolina, you know, heck of a ball club. They they can play physical, and they were big as well. So
Sure.
it played out exactly like we thought it would. Our rooting interest didn't win, but we were accurate.
Yeah, we were sort of for the underdogs in that one, but I agree with you 100%. Anytime you're in a basketball game situation like that, and you can make the other team do something that they haven't done all year in a finals, they don't practice against it, they don't know what to do. He was just in a bad situation because everybody all throughout the tournament did double team him.
Mm-hmm.
They let him roam, gave him some rope, and he just kind of hung himself because he couldn't get done with what he wanted to get done.
Yeah.
But it was a really good game all the way through. The thing that really highlighted it for me was it was a close game up until about the last minute and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say that North Carolina turned up the defense. It just looked to me that Gonzaga was just, again, in a place that they weren't familiar with. It was too close of a game for them, and they made a couple of crucial mistakes that just led to some runaway dunks from North Carolina. But that's the problem with a team like Gonzaga and their schedule. They don't get to play a hyped up, super intense competition like North Carolina does pretty much every game.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes down to the final minutes, crunch time, in the championship situation, I think that's what kind of got them more than anything.
Yeah.
Is the fact that they just they haven't lived in that occasion long enough to make that work for them.
Yeah, certainly the North Carolina atmosphere is insane during the year.
Sure,
with
sure.
Chapel Hill and Duke and all
Duke,
the
NC State,
all the
heavyweights.
ACC teams. It's you want to talk about playoff atmosphere. I mean, they're in it every game from game one.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's move on to the NBA, and I got one question for you.
Great.
Flashback to circa 2011, the confetti's falling, Dirk's crying tears of joy. They've just dethroned, or not dethroned, but they've just defeated LeBron James to win the title. What kind of odds would I have gotten if I would have told you before they win another, not title, not Western Conference Finals appearance, before they win another playoff series, a retired Tony Romo is going to be on the Mavericks?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of people are talking noise about that.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a great move. He's sort of one of the city sons, and his son is sort of setting in the city here as he moves to
a lot of people say city sons of bitch.
Yeah, really true. But he's a big public figure here in Dallas, and
I've got no problem with that.
I have absolutely no
whatever.
problem with it. What it would have been really cool
Mhm.
is if whatever the score of the game was, maybe it was who knows, but Carlisle says Tony,
Yeah.
and he gets to kneel by the scorer's table like he's going in.
Yeah. Well, that could still happen.
Yeah, it could. A couple games left, but something along those lines, just to kind of really hype it up. Because to be honest with you, we both know, like I told you last week, this is the Mavs' greatest season since 2011 because I really think that we're not going to play rent a player, rent an old player. We're not going to play who's starting this year, who's not going to be back next year. I mean, we're starting with a youth movement, and that's how you build your team back to where it's supposed to be. Granted, we would both like to see Dirk get a little something here, another championship or make another run. But I think that was over with the strategy that they've played in the last couple of years here.
Let me ask you something. Do you think the thrill is gone for Cuban? Do you think that his heart is still in it as a fan? Which was, he's always been a businessman, and he has, a bunch of things going besides the Mavericks. But this is the one thing that his heart was truly in, and he was really in it to win a championship and not just to turn a bottom dollar.
Yeah.
Is that thrill leaving as he gets older, as he's won a title? Could you see him ever selling, or is he just as gung ho as ever?
Well, let me ask you this quick question before I tell you where I'm going with things. Obviously, Cuban's a billionaire. Do we know much about any of his businesses other than the Mavericks?
I mean, Shark Tank.
Well, yeah, maybe so.
No,
but we really don't. But let me continue down this path here.
Okay.
The reason we don't was because the Mavericks has been the shiny thing that he's been going after. And he likes the Mavericks, loves the Mavericks. That's the shiny thing that everybody associates him with. But I'm going to tell you something you're not going to believe.
Okay.
I think that the new shiny thing is politics.
No,
for Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
And I think that's not for Donald Trump, but I mean for
in
Cuban.
the vein of a billionaire businessman running for.
And I really think that that's going to be the new shiny thing that's going to come his way in the near future.
See, that's we hadn't even discussed that, and that's exactly
I'm there.
Where I was thinking he might be going. He did a lot of actual debate prep with Hillary, wasn't he? Simulating Donald Trump.
Yep.
So if that becomes his new the object of his desire, do the Mavs take a back seat, or is he willing to unload him? I mean, like I said, we've never really had a prominent GM here in town. You had Donnie, Don Nelson Jr. But as far as who they run to with the questions and who's happy to do a press conference and discuss the basketball moves, it's always been Cuban.
Right. It's always been Cuban, and I think it will always. It'll always be Cuban. I don't think the Mavericks will go anywhere. I think everybody always wants to get a quote from Cuban and that. So
let me clarify. I don't mean that in any sort of oppressive Jerry Jones way. Like he's happy to let the scouting department, the overseas scouting department, tell him exactly who's good overseas. Right. And I doubt he knew a darn thing about Dirk until they brought it to his attention. But he's got his people in place and he trusts them. Right. I don't.
And I don't see that changing. I see that staying the same. I see him getting less and less maybe involved in the day to day.
He needs to,
and then slide into politics. I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if in 2 years that's where he spends. That's what he becomes known for more so than the Mavericks.
He's kind of got a conundrum though, because in a few years he'll either be running on I'm doing great. As a businessman under the current administration, so change things, or he'll be running as listen to me, I'm not doing well financially.
Right.
But okay, so they dropped the average age about 10 years, and you're liking that going forward.
Yeah.
Agreed. And the draft is a crapshoot these days. Okay, I want to say one thing about the draft, and then we can move on to playoff seedings. I really think that the NBA just needs to go back to the worst record gets the first pick. I don't want to. I don't have a use for ping pong balls and odds anymore. You know what? If you want to literally try and lose games and suck that bad, then that's its own punishment, and karma is going to get you. And especially now that there are no more Tim Duncans, because no one's staying 4 years and coming out as a polished product. Okay, so if you want to be that bad and go after the first pick, which we largely don't know if is going to even be an NBA starter half the time these days, then go ahead. I mean, I don't like this with all the protected picks and this and that, and people accidentally make. Who was it that accidentally made a shot the other day and then kind of oops, did I just win the game for us?
We're not supposed to be winning, right?
Yeah,
it was a Laker guy, I think.
Yeah,
but I understand what you're saying, and I would tell you that as much as the NBA is moving away from that tanking mentality, and I'll tell you where they're moving away from it from. They're moving away from it with this resting players stuff.
Okay.
Because they want a better product out on the floor for their fans.
Yeah.
And so my point is, if you're going to just tank all your games, you're not putting a good product out on the floor for your fans. And so I'm against it from that point of view. But I understand where you're coming from.
Well, the resting your players, I've never had a problem with the teams doing that. As a fan, I want my team to win a championship. I don't necessarily want them to, it's not about the entertainment value of a particular game. It's as a fan with a rooting interest, it's I want my team to succeed in the playoffs and win a championship. The whole thing that started this off was that Spurs versus Heat game where Popovich left 4 starters behind it. I don't even think they went on the trip with them, and they got fined like $250,000 by the league. Well, that they barely actually lost that game. They lost by a few points late in the fourth quarter. I would have loved to see them win that game and then have the league fine them for winning a game.
Yeah.
But I've got no problem with resting players. I've got no problem with, and you know what? Actually, these guys are not, they say they don't practice during the season because there's no time. I believe that. They have a shoot around and a walkthrough. But, these guys are professional athletes. And they're, okay, let's say you're playing 40 minutes in a game, which is heavy minutes. Let's say you do that, 3-4 times a week. I mean, that's a few hours of physical activity in your prime. I just don't think that it's that demanding on them with today's resources.
I'm going to tell you what the issue is with this is garbage.
Okay.
Right? This is garbage. Resting players. The reason you need to rest your players isn't because of the amount of time that they're practicing and the amount of time that they're playing. It's the amount of time they're going out drinking at night, coming back in at 4 in the morning, and waking up. That's the problem with the NBA. You got a bunch of young cats in there who in between games are at the strip club. That's why they need the rest, because they're up all freaking night. I'm being serious. I know we're laughing at it, but I'm being serious.
No,
if they were they're professional athletes, but they're not professionals. Okay,
I totally get what you're saying.
How does Brady think he's going to play 6-7 more years? Because he takes care of his temple.
And it's not just the working out; it's the diet, it's the hyperbaric chamber, it's the early to bed, early to rise.
Exactly.
And, if you go back to the Phil Jackson era Bulls, he would tell you that when they turned the corner, that they had guys, at first disavow going out and many of those players made a vow they were done drinking during the season until the playoff run was over. And that is something that's lacking these days, is that, I'm going to take care of every facet of my body and life to give all I can to the game. Because, you say, oh, you need a rest, you can't play 8 more minutes. Well, maybe it's because you were out till 4 a.m.
That's the deal. I'm serious. That's the deal. In all honesty, because to take your point into consideration, you're right. An athlete who is supposed to, and basketball is a strenuous sport. You're up and down. You're running. You're always moving for the time that you're in there. But you play 40 minutes in a game. But you play them at 6-minute stretches, which gives you another 2 or 3 minutes before you have commercials and sitting down because of this, that, and the other. You're not running a freaking marathon nonstop, okay?
I know.
And so I don't get this resting player stuff, and to me there's too many other variables that you need to focus on that might be the problem. And the 40 minutes you play a night 3 times a week, because I look at their schedules, and most teams play 3 games a week. Every once in a while they'll play 4 games a week, and on the rarest of occasions they might play 5 games in a week. Okay, so if the bulk of the schedule is 3 times a week, goodness gracious.
I know. That's the only physical demand on you. Like I said, you're not practicing.
No.
You're not doing anything strenuous besides that. I mean, maybe a little weight room work or whatever, I concur, and that's not a popular opinion these days. But I mean,
the truth.
It was never an issue back in the day, and back then you had players in several sports that had to have an off-season job because they needed to supplement their income.
Well, they're playing 4 years of college where they got the curfew. They're
Yeah.
under drinking age, all of these kind of things. They come out, they go to school for 4 years, they come out with a little bit of discipline, not to mention the fact that they're polished basketball players as well.
Yeah.
It's just a whole different environment these days, and I really do mean that. I think that that's just a farce. The whole I got to rest my players thing.
I do too. Couldn't agree more. All right, Kevin and Dave, we're going to be back in a moment. We're going to talk some Texas Rangers and their crazy start to the season. DallasSportsandMar.com, Dallas Sports Talk on Facebook. We'll be back in a moment.